Hey, good to see you again. This is an excerpt from my Revenue on Repeat course where I teach you how to offer better, more profitable retainers to your services clients. Now, I'm about to tell a story about when I was first starting out trying to offer retainers to my clients, and it's a fail story. But I like telling fail stories because it seems like everybody on the internet wants to flash their wealth and kind of either be fake or kind of show you the end product, but they don't want to talk about their failures and the hard journey to get there. And if we're being honest, you learn more from failure than you do from these winning stories. So let's travel back in time to when I was a freelancer, before I owned an agency, before I learned everything that I know now. I was working with a potential client, and their website was slow, it was buggy, they had no search engine optimization, bad user experience, all of that. And I really wanted the job. So I priced all of that at $2,500 package. I remember it was a long time ago, so now my work is much higher than that, but that's what I priced the job at. And the potential client came back and said, we can't afford that. And so I really wanted to work with them. I needed the money. I was trying to figure out what I could do. And I said, you know what? I could just do this as a retainer. And so, of course, the client was thrilled. They were like, oh, that's great. And I said, okay, it'll be $250 a month, and I'll handle these things and stretch it out over time. The thing is, though, that I hadn't learned about offering certainty, access, and insurance to my clients yet through retainers. And so I still felt all this performance pressure. A lot of it was I put on myself. And I said, I have to show them each month that they're getting results. And with a lot of this stuff, it kind of needs to be front-loaded. If you do search engine optimization, you can't bring people to a terrible website. What would be the point of bringing them there if the site won't load and it has an awful user experience? In the same vein, if you create a good user experience on the website, but you haven't then spent time in search engine optimization, nobody's coming to the site. And it's a bit hard to show positive metrics with a site redesign and with a positive user experience if nobody's there for you to get any metrics. So I put all this pressure on myself, and I took basically 1 month's worth of retainer work and I quadrupled it. And I spent just tons of hours fixing up everything because I felt performance pressure. And I did that for the first 2 months. So I was working my tail off. And the client was very happy. I mean, why wouldn't he be, right? But then after that first 2 months, he came to me and he said, I'm sorry, we just kind of can't keep doing this anymore. We can't afford it. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about your contract? Well, we'll get to the problem with the contract in a minute. But also, if I did all the work for him that was supposed to take a year and I did it in 2 months, why would he want to keep paying me? Okay, and once again, we're going to talk about choosing good clients in a minute. So what I had done is I had transferred all the risk. Remember, entrepreneurs are people who essentially get paid to take on risk. And the more risk you take, the more you should get paid. For me, I had transferred the risk from the client and put it all on my own shoulders with no down payment, spreading it out over time, spreading these payments out over time. And it really came back to bite me. So now we're going to transition into kind of a slideshow talking about what you should learn from this and what I learned. So you heard my embarrassing story. Now let's kind of apply this to your business, right? I'll tell you what I learned, and hopefully it'll help you in your services business. As much as I love retainers, right? And this is about revenue on repeat. This is about offering retainers to your clients. Not everything fits into a retainer. There's certain work that just should be done in an upfront project. Let me give you an example. If you're building a website, can you imagine only spending 2 hours a month trying to build that website? I think your developer would kill you. Trying to restart and go back and look where they left off and being in the middle of something and having to stop, and nothing would get done. So not everything works in a retainer. And a lot of times the best way to do it is to start with an initial engagement, like let's say build the website, and then the retainer or the SEO. There are other things that fit better into retainer models like we talk about in the rest of the course, okay? Yeah, sometimes you got to start with that initial engagement. And especially if you don't know the client well, you really should be getting at least 50% upfront. Now listen, I'm going to mention later, we're going to talk about contracts. You see it there at the end of this list. And so you never work with somebody you don't trust, but still getting 50% upfront as a down payment helps in case you've misjudged the client or in case something goes south, okay? So unless you've worked with them for years, especially on those initial engagements, maybe even just the first month of the retainer, get a down payment. It just reduces the risk that you're taking on. Next, good retainers are not payment plans for cheap clients. And I'm already kind of laughing here because I'm the one that did it to myself. I wanted that client so bad that I suggested the terrible idea. I turned that project, instead of doing an initial engagement, I turned that project into a payment plan for them. And of course, they loved the idea. Why wouldn't they? I was taking all the risk and putting it on my shoulders. And so let me just remind you that that's what your job is as an entrepreneur. It's about taking risk. However, you have to be fairly compensated for that risk. If you're taking on a lot of risk, you got to be rewarded more. The payout has to be higher. And for me, it definitely wasn't. And you know what happened. Okay, now remember, later on in the course, I'm going to teach you about how to offer certainty, access, and insurance to your clients. And that's a way to essentially offer the clients what they want in a really low risk way and a low pressure way. I talked about all that performance pressure that I felt, and certainty, access, and insurance kind of removes a lot of that. And through leverage, man, it just reduces the workload. So keep going in the course and you'll learn more about that very soon. Okay, and then let's talk about contracts. This one's a big one, so I saved it for last. You have to decide that you are not going to work with people you don't trust. And some people say, but we have a contract. Contracts are really not worth anything. Contracts are to keep honest people honest. And what it lays out is, remember, you're only working with honest people. What it lays out is, this is what we agreed we're going to do. Why? Because both parties are very busy. You're both business owners. And so it's good to have it written out because you will forget over time. Especially during, let's say, a long-term retainer. Over a period of years, you might forget. And so it's good to have it written out. But just to go back and reiterate, you don't work with anybody that you don't trust. Okay? And let me dive a little deeper into why contracts are not actually worth it. Okay? Here's a good example. Let's say you're doing a $30,000 website redesign. Okay? So you're building a whole new website for somebody. And hopefully you were smart and you got a down payment. Now, with a project that big, you may not be able to get 50% up front, but let's say you got $10K up front. Okay. So you got your initial down payment and it's time for the second milestone, and they're going to pay you another $10K for the second milestone. And then the client is just not paying. And maybe you're like, I'm just going to keep doing a little bit of work. And so then maybe, you've put more into it than you've actually gotten, because you're trying to meet the deadline, and sure, the client's going to pay, and anyway, they don't end up paying, all right? And now you have a choice. They owe you $20,000 because that's what the contract says, and that's kind of what you've agreed upon. But is it really worth your time to choose the negative route and to be like, all right, well, I'm going to get a lawyer, and then you're going to spend all the time meeting with the lawyer, which is harmful to your business to some extent, and then you got to pay the lawyer fees, and you got to spend all the time in court. And think about all those costs. Think about the fact that in your business, you could be working on getting new clients or doing other work or growing your business. There's so many other more positive things that you could be doing instead of paying all those lawyer fees and trying to get your pound of flesh in court. And I think the other thing is I would caution you from taking the negative route is because having worked with clients before, I've seen, especially in local SEO and reputation management, I've seen what negative reviews can do to a company. And if they really want to, they can get together with their negative friends and, because we're talking about a type of person that would skip out on paying you, right? So I don't hold them in high regard. And so they can get together with their negative friends and create spam accounts and leave terrible reviews on your business and all over social media that are wrong and that are fake, and it's going to be very hard for you to fight them. The platforms don't do a great job of reviewing spam and fake reviews, and so they might sit there for quite a long time, and it really might end up hurting your business quite seriously. Okay, so what I would say is choose the positive. Don't choose to go down that negative route because it's only going to be heartbreak, and even if you get that money back, I just don't think it's worth it. So I'd encourage you to choose the positive route. So that was just a sample of the content from our Revenue on Repeats course, where we teach you how to maximize business profit and free time. So make sure you click that link in the description to find out more.